Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I am Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and this is Rockin the Love. Hey,
That's what it is.
how'd you get your picture like that? It's like it's softened you totally up so that you can't see any imperfections in you. I know.
Are you sure it's not just your eyes?
That my eyes are fuzzy? No, I look very sharp on my screen. That's why I was asking.
I don't know. It's the magic of technology. I've done nothing.
Okay. All right.
Okay. But glad that you're seeing the truth of me.
Oh, it's a very
Yeah. Anyway, so enough about us. We are a married couple living in two different states right now. One is a state of confusion. I don't know where you are. Anyway, I'm in California and Gil is in New Mexico, and we are rocking the love from a distance. So, our show is here to teach you and tell you and learn from you all about how ways to rock the love in the world. So, thank you for joining us.
Yep, we can't do it without all of you because that's where it all shows up is when we're all together in the process.
So true. So, say hello right where you're signing in from. Like us on your social medias, do all those good things, and settle in because today we're going to talk about intuition. The theme is
Into
into it. So, but before we do that, how's your week?
my week has been eventful and good, and a lot happening. A lot happening. Um, I'm freaked out because my title's up there.
That's okay. Just keep
um,
going. And
anyway,
this is what we do. We just move on. We
I,
don't call attention to what we don't want people to look at. We
yeah,
keep.
don't look at that. Okay.
Well, there's
Um,
nothing wrong with it. What's I think
no,
I
no.
thought that it was great that you had it up there.
Oh, okay. Well, in regards to that, I um, yeah, we had some very big meetings and discussions and some real decisions made at the center to move us forward. And so it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
Right.
Aha! Reverend Sherry from East Bay is here with us. Well,
Reverend Sherry would tell you to put that back up. Don't you think, Reverend Sherry? I'm so glad you're here. We've missed you. We've
yeah,
missed you. Our show isn't the same without you. But yeah, he should put it back up, right? It is who he is. Okay. So go ahead. What were you saying?
oh, just that it's been a lot going on, and but we've had some really good decisions, and have some big services coming up. A memorial at the end of the week, and next week, actually, I don't know how our show is going to happen exactly, but right at the time of our show, I have a wedding that I'm performing. So,
Well, maybe we should do it live on our show.
oh, that's a thought.
Excuse me. Well, that's exciting. Well,
Do
I
a
mean that.
studio in Pecos.
Oh, look at Sherry. Sherry's got a title. She says, "I am now Creative Metamorphosis Teaching Center." I mean, her new
Wow.
ministry,
Creative Metamorphosis Teaching Center.
CMT.
So you got it together and got it all figured out. That is cool. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes,
It's no
congratulations.
small feat for anyone who's not involved in the Centers for Spiritual Living create a teaching chapter arena or a teaching center or whatever it is you're trying to create along those lines.
Well, and I'm not trying to create anything, but doesn't it seem like you said, it's been a really busy week, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't it seem like hardly anything is a small feat anymore,
Mm.
right? Hardly anything is a small feat. There you go. There's a selling point. You'll have to talk to your clients. We've got a ring bearer all ready to go.
All right. All right.
Well, my week, you ask, it's
Yes.
been it's been interesting. I mean, I think just like you said, it's everything feels everything feels like so much, and I find this with all the people I'm talking to. Like, yes, people have a lot on their plates, but it seems that at this time in space, people are just overwhelmed with all of the things that they're doing. Of course, I am talking to a lot of CSL people who are doing capstones and blah 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 blah. All of those things that kind of freak you out anyway. But it just seems crazy. The week has been crazy, and lots of activity here in our house. Lots of transitions, not in the death and dying way, except metaphorically, but in the just movement and things happening, and it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I think I, th- I I think the reality is that um, part of our whole thing is to figure out how to be with the reality that life feels like this sometimes. You know, how do we either be with it and or find ways that we can view it enough a little bit differently so it doesn't feel as much that way.
Well, and how do we accept that it's the new norm? I mean, I think so much of it is the new normal. I really think with all of the things that we do and our modern conveniences and this and that we're taking on more because somewhere along the line we thought we could take on more because the resources were there, and now we've got so much going on. I mean, for example, I know I have so many projects going on that it's crazy. And I was telling Gil that, um, well, I've told people, and I'm sorry, Gil, because I don't think I've told you this, and I apologize to do it on camera, but I am falling in love with AI. I seriously, I have to reconcile my like thoughts about it, but I'm like, it is such a, it cuts out so much time for me. Like, it's, because I'm this, here it is, because I'm collaborative, and because I like, and I get energized by creating with people. For me, it's like having someone there to collaborate with. So if I start with AI, and AI and I have a little convo, then AI comes back to me and says, "Well, here's some ideas," and I go, "Great," and I don't have to argue. I don't, because I really don't like people, so it's like I don't have to really talk to it, but
And you don't have to take all the suggestions.
I don't exactly. That's what I mean. I don't have to take the suggestions. I don't have to think about the feelings, but it starts me off so that I go, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, let me adapt that. Let me move this," and instead of me sitting there, because half of the process for me is like, "Okay, what am I gonna write? Okay," and trying to get it in alignment. So anyway, so yeah, so I think that we're overwhelmed because things got so easy for a while, and we just pushed buttons. We just pushed buttons. Uh, uh, I'm going to take the fifth on that. I don't. People are not always my favorite. This is true. I know. I know.
Which I will point out in this moment puts me in a rather precarious spot since you're now falling in love with AI. So this could create an issue, I suppose. So I'm just going to keep my eye out for that.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Homestead, do you have some good news?
I have some good news. So apparently, around 10 years ago, um, a couple of girls got together, and it was their grandma's 80th birthday, and they figured out that they didn't know what to do, but they decided to send her skydiving. Now, apparently, this lady's a pretty good sport because she went. Well, 10 years later, they were trying to figure out what to do for her 90th birthday. And so they said, well, let's send her skydiving again. It worked out good last time. And so she went again at 90 years old. And I thought it was just so cool that she was so willing to do that. And I think my favorite line that she said was, "You only live once. The experience is lovely. Sometimes when I go shopping, I'm more nervous doing that."
Wow. Wow. I mean, what a great perspective, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I think, that willingness to do something totally out of, quote, out of character, something that's not in your normal range of, competencies, and of course, it's also a little dangerous, no matter how old you are.
Well, and at the 80-year-old mark, she was doing something she hadn't done.
Right.
I mean, she was willing to step out and do something she hadn't done before.
Yeah. So
Wow.
there you go. So any ideas in our heads about what it means to age probably are exactly that, ideas in our head.
Okay, well, that's a whole nother show because it's all
Yes, it
in
is.
our head, right?
Yeah.
The whole darn thing.
What's our relationship to our life, and what's our relationship to others in our life, and how do we allow them to play with us and encourage us to play? And
Well, see, but here's the real question for our show today. What part did intuition play in her saying yes to that?
Or in those two granddaughters setting it up?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk more about intuition. So my story is actually kind of a follow-up. A while ago on the show, one of our good news stories was about a company that was taking plastic out of the ocean and turning it into bracelets. And they were doing this in I'm trying to find the information. They were operating in 12 locations across 2 continents. And the name of the company is 4Ocean. And they have now successfully reached 30 million pounds of waste pulled from the sea. 30 million pounds.
30 million pounds. That's a fair amount.
Yeah. They hit their mark, and way before they expected, and it's a great company. It makes bracelets, and the bracelets are, they're cute. They're nice, and they're not expensive. And all of their captains and crews live in the communities that they serve, and they're hired as full-time employees. And all of the bracelets are handcrafted by artisans in either Guatemala or Bali. And every bracelet purchase funds the cleanup and creates jobs that provide income for the people in these communities.
So it's a rather holistic operation, it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up on the old story that we told, and just 30 million pounds.
Yeah. So along those lines, I just was reading, and I don't have the specifics on it, but it follows up with that. And that is that at least some new estimates indicate that we've been overestimating the amount of plastic waste in the ocean as much as 60 times.
I saw that article somewhere.
Whoa. I mean, the bad side is you've seen the pictures of it, so it still looks like a lot. But the good side is maybe it's not nearly as much as we thought. So anyway, I'll be interested to see what more we learn about that in the future.
I will say that 30 million pounds pulled from the ocean, it makes me feel a lot better about our garage. It makes me feel like there's hope. We have to clean out our garage, y'all. We just have to. And so
does that make you think we can get all 60 million pounds out of there? Is that what
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Okay. So we are going to talk about intuition, what part intuition plays in our relationships and our lives and all of that and how if are you into it? If you are, then meet us back here, right in a few minutes on New Thought Media Network.
I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made beautifully. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Beyond books and words and songs, at the gate of all my longing, leaving certainty behind. I take one step and you come running.
And we are back. I am Robyn
And I'm
Rice
Gil.
Olmsted.
And I'm Gil William Olmsted. And together we make up Gil and Robyn, or Robyn and Gil, or somebody. And we're here with Rockin the Love today, as we are on virtually every Wednesday. And we're happy to be with you and excited. I just want to give a quick shout out to the advertising department at New Thought Media, because it's really helpful that when they put up an ad like that one about Jesse Powers, they let us know that the potluck will be in person only. So in case we were concerned about how to do it online, I think that was really helpful.
Okay. So good. All right. So, intuition, what is it? Do we all have it? How do we use it? Do we use it? Do we have to know we're using it? What is intuition? Let's start there.
What is it? Intuition is an inner knowing, perhaps. Do you have like a definition?
I do. But I mean, I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, that's why my thought is that it's an inner knowing. It's without being able to point to all the facts per se, without being able to point to all the reasons why. It's just this is what needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the definition. It says the power or faculty of attaining to direct knowledge or cognition without evident rational thought and and inference.
Well,
Although,
interference is another whole.
I was going to say that's a whole different thing. Well, I mean, not really, but yeah, yeah, and a lot of times. Another one says intuition is a form of knowledge that appears in consciousness without obvious deliberation. It is not magical, but rather a faculty in which hunches are generated by past experience and cumulative knowledge, often referred to as gut feelings. Intuition tends to arise holistically and quickly without awareness of the underlying mental processing of information.
Ooh, so is intuition like our own personal AI?
Well,
The thing that processes all the stuff quickly that we don't even realize we've processed?
I mean, I think in some ways it is. I mean, I mean, that whole AI piece is a whole different show, and it actually, yeah, okay.
Well,
I mean, it came up for me like as a screenplay, pieces of that because how much of AI? I mean, I actually did. There was a whole article I looked at, and I mean, looked at. I didn't read it about AI and intuition because I was like, I can't go down that rabbit hole because I want to talk about that. So I didn't read it. But yeah, I think that's a good question.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, the whole concept of AI is that you have a computer which is functioning at a speed that we don't function at, looking through all kinds of information and then coming back with it put together. And if perhaps, because here's what the underlying question was for me. It is how does intuition work when intuition, you know the right answer, and then all the cognitive processes tell you it's a different answer. If you take the time to go through the cognitive process, you come up with a different answer. But your gut tells you got to do something other than what that decision is. You know what I mean? I mean, how does that work? Is it processing some block of information in a way that we just don't understand? Or why is it that when we process the information in a normal manner, we come up with the wrong answer, if you will?
Oh, those are great questions. And, when I was looking at research and just doing some reading, I started thinking about the Heart Math Institute and thinking about having someone come because I read something that was like, we process from our heart first. I mean, it hits our heart before it hits our head. And so
we have more neurological activity in our heart area than we do in our brain. So that's a whole nother topic, but yes, around that situation.
We got a whole lot of other topics going.
Yeah, we should write this down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So all of that said, well, so is intuition the same as a gut feeling?
That's a good question. I mean, in my sense, I mean, now you're talking semantics. It depends on how somebody defines it. In my opinion, generally, we're talking, quote, that gut feeling. It is that intuition. It is that thing that we know, but we don't have a rational reason to know it in our heads anyway. We're unaware of the rational process to get there. We don't know how we got there. We just know we're there. And that's that gut feeling. And that's an intuitive feeling. That's this is what I'm sensing. I mean, you do this to me all the time. Well, what does your gut tell you?
I don't say gut. I say, what are you feeling?
What are you feeling?
I don't say
you
gut.
Feel into this and tell me what you think. And I say, blobbity blop. And you go, no, feel into it.
No, I say
that's
not
what intuition. Do we have to feel into it or does it just show up?
Well, I think that depends on how cerebral you are. So I know how you process, and when you're thinking, you're like, and I can hear your brain going, well, but if that's that, then it won't be like this, and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, get out of the details and just feel, like yes or no. Not not I don't need to know the complications or the ramifications, but I think that's interesting because um part I mean, as humans, right? Intuition, like first impressions, right? Like a first impression of of
Mhm.
somebody.
Mhm.
I mean, that it serves our brains need to prepare and predict for whatever is going to happen next, right? Because our human brains are always going forward, right?
Well, the brain, a lot of the brain function is trying to make sure that we're safe, whatever that
Right,
looks like. So that's what you're making these quick judgments to determine how you should operate,
right, exactly.
to remain safe. So how does intuition, affect us in our relationships? I think it would be pretty broad, really, and sometimes probably could be extremely helpful, and we may or may not actually accept it.
Yeah, well, I actually think our relationship is a great um, example of intuition. Um, but before that, Kevin says, for
I
me, intuition is a close relative to the Western version of faith.
hmm,
Ooh,
hmm.
interesting. That's really interesting. So, but that plays into what I was going to say. So, for those of you who don't know, which is probably a great majority of you, Gil and I met on the phone. We didn't know each other. We talked to each other for 4 months or something before we met. Well,
Oh,
longer than that. But
yeah, but we, in terms of intensely, like 4 to 6 months.
yeah, 4 to 6 months, and in that time, I mean, we knew we knew before we met that we were going to get married. I
And
mean,
both of us did.
we both knew. We knew. And I mean, the circumstances and the conversation and all those things had little to do with love or marriage. I mean, before we started talking within the 4 month context, but I mean, we knew, and there was something intuitive about continuing our conversation into the next realm of life. You know what I mean? Like getting it out of it was a business relationship that was, very I don't want to say shallow. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, but
Well, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It became personal, and that's when we started to be in more contact, etc. Up until that point, it was casual, if you will.
yeah. So, but I mean, but intuition was, I think, so much involved in our relationship. We made big decisions and big leaps and bounds before we even met. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kevin. Wait, Kevin said something else before that. Intuition. Thank you. Intuition is also a close relative of impulse. That's us. We were impulsive. We were young and impulsive and free. Okay.
Therefore,
There,
intuition is cultivated, nurtured like faith, in order to distinguish it from a reaction or an impulse. So here's the thing, Kev. I'm thinking about faith, and to me, faith is something to do with I believe this because I believe it. I mean, I can tell you at some level what it is that I believe and why that is. Whereas with intuition, and this is just for me, but this is just my thought around it. Intuition is just a thing where I go, that just doesn't feel right. or this is, but I don't have any rationale even. And faith quite often has rationale for me.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a both and. I mean, like when I read the statement, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. But then when I hear you, I go, oh, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, yeah, that's fascinating, I think.
You think?
So, yeah. So, so how or when, so, okay, so back to intuition in a relationship. I mean, I think that our relationship, I think we rely on a lot of intuition.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I do. I mean, and there's those there's those times when I I can feel you, right? Is that intuition still?
Yeah, I don't know. You're kind of getting in the weeds. I mean, at some level, I think, yeah, that's your intuition, unless you're going to the fact that you're literally in my head. And then that's another seemingly different question to me. But I think in general, for most of us, that's more of an intuitive kind of thing that happens. We're just like, oh, I did, something's going on. It's not a psychic connection, if you will, necessarily. Or maybe it is. Maybe that's how the intuition shows up. Maybe, it's all processed in a way that through my normal processing, I wouldn't even notice it.
So, all right. So, is intuition always right?
Is intuition always right? Well, that's a good question, because you could argue that from two sides. One is, yes, intuition is always right, because there's always this thing that comes forth from me that knows. The question is that actually what I'm hearing or sensing, or am I sensing my own fear, my own bent on something? And that's what I'm really paying attention to when I'm thinking it's intuition. Okay, so Sherry says, intuition is the inner pull, pulling you toward something. It shows up and there is a piece around it until we get into our head, and then we can allow fear to interfere with the urge. So yes, so if we get ahead of it a little bit, yeah, anyway. What do you think?
Well, I think that Kevin says, I distinguish between beliefs made conscious, as in I believe, and those less than conscious patterns, habits, thoughts that drive my life while I am not paying attention.
Okay. And that can be some kind of belief system, obviously, which I guess is a form of faith.
And Kevin says, how does one distinguish between intuition and impulse? Before you answer that question, I think we should have Kevin and Sherry on the show together. I think that would be a lively discussion. Okay. How does intuition, how does one distinguish between intuition and impulse?
Wow. Well, okay. So the question is, did you just do something as a reaction, or did you have a sense that you were supposed to do it? Or you were supposed to not do something? Or did you just not do it as a reaction to something else? You know what I mean? I mean, I think intuition is referring to something that's more intentional.
I think so too. I think
but
sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how you technically define that, but I think it's more intentional.
Sherry says, I believe it is always right. It is the allness of spirit. We must be in alignment with it to be in tune with it.
Well then, so if we do something that's out of alignment, it's probably an impulse. I mean, yeah, an impulse versus an intuition.
Well, That's interesting. I mean, yeah, to me, intuitions, yeah, that's kind of true though, because to me, intuitions are are an inward knowingness, if that
Hmm.
makes any sense. An impulse is more an action outward thing. Does that make sense?
Hmm. So, can I share something I found earlier?
Yeah, sure show.
Cease trying to work everything out with your minds. It will get you nowhere. Live by intuition and inspiration and let your whole life be revelation. So that's the argument for that knowingness is that connection to spirit. It is that connection to the whole thing. So that knowingness, that intuition is where we should be living from versus when we try to work it out in our heads and fix it and put it into the box and do all those things. Um, but it's an interesting thing. So Kevin says, when I was new to metaphysics and spirituality, I am pretty sure what I was calling intuition was not so productive impulses.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, because you're experimenting and you're, yeah, I I get that.
I mean, distinguishing between what it is you want to do, or what wants to come forth from you, that's sort of that impulse, versus hearing the inner voice, the inner direction that says this is where you need to go. I really want to go on that camping trip, so my impulse is to get it together and go. I really want to go, and my intuition may be saying, no, even though it's fun, it's with the right people, it's at the right time, and my intuition may be saying no.
Well, but I think Kevin, and this may not be what Kevin was saying, but what I'm interpreting him to say is, I think using that example of the camping trip, you know, I think especially when you're new to New Thought, metaphysics, whatever this teaching, that there's a part where we, if we want to go on that camping trip, we may be able to justify it by going, I am strong, I am healthy, I am going on this camping trip because it's, and you put it into that box of all the reasons that a camping trip would be good for someone. And you're not really listening to whatever. It's not the time is not now. There's other things that are more important to do. You need to, whatever the messages are, you know um, I don't know. So I mean, I'm just, it's
Yeah. Sherry
maybe.
says, I feel there's always an inner peace when spirit is speaking, and an impulse is when we react to our decisions.
I
Yeah,
love
I get the idea. Um, but the other thing that came to my mind is, we sometimes talk about, the distinction between what is good and what is best or great. And so sometimes I think our impulse based on our logical brain is to go to the thing, maybe to go to the thing that's good. And even our intuition is telling us, no, there's a great thing over here that you should be gravitating toward. And due to our fear, whatever else, we go with the impulse. And I think that to me, that's some of that distinction between what's going on.
Kevin says, years after having a dedicated daily spiritual practice, was I able to cultivate and distinguish between impulse and intuition. Yeah, I think it takes some learning and some listening, and um, yeah, that brings up a quote from me that I have, that you'll never follow your own inner voice until you clear up the doubts in your mind. And I would even say, yeah, not even doubts, but even clear up the voices in your head, because we get messages from so many levels, and old stories and all of that. And so,
Well, the downside I can see, because sometimes when we get that, whatever that intuitive thought is, whatever that direction is, it's very easy to doubt it. It's very easy to go, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not going there. Right?
for you, yeah.
For me. For me. Okay.
Well, I mean, but that's you're logical.
Right.
You're logical. I mean, I yes, for a lot of people, for most people, maybe, I don't know, but um, here we go. Just like Sherry's saying, Sherry, you are so my people. Isn't it all good? If we don't think it's good, that's okay, because there's a lesson. Hopefully, we won't go down that road again, which is a version of what I was just about to say. Was, I mean, yeah, I don't hear it with the logical tone. I hear, when I hear my intuition, I hear it and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. It's more of a thanks for sharing, and then deciding what I'm going to follow. Or if, it doesn't, for me, when I hear my intuition, it doesn't always mean that I'm going to follow it, but it does mean for me that I'm going to be aware of it and take notice of it, and, perhaps do something a different way or have a precaution. But I rarely don't think I go too logical about it. I mean, but that's because for me, there's nothing logical about this life. I mean, there's
Mhm.
there's nothing logical, because my experience has been that the minute I think I know, spirit is quite adept in showing me that I don't. So I don't question anymore, or I don't think like, no, it has to be this way. I just go, okay, here we go. Where you don't do that,
I do
right?
that sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes. But I mean, for the most part, you try to figure out how we're going to get the bill paid. Thank God. I love you for that. But I mean, that's the different, you know what I mean? I mean, not that I don't, you know what I mean. But
Yeah. No, I do know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. I
so,
think, I think Sherry's comment that it isn't all good, um, and it must be good because it is what happened, or it is, it is the decision we made. And I think that's accurate. I think the question is with intuition, um, is is there sometimes a way or a direction to go that shows up that we still may not choose, and that doesn't mean it's a bad decision, because whatever it is, we we come out on the other side with value. But it may have been an easier route, it may have been a more productive route, it may have been a more satisfying route, you know if we'd followed our intuition. Thought.
yeah. Thought what?
Thought. You're having a thought, or you're looking for a
Well,
thought.
no, I was thinking about how, yes, I was thinking about how in different cultures, how they view intuition,
Mm.
because it's different, and in Eastern philosophy, intuition is mostly intertwined with religion and spirituality, and meaning exists in different religious texts and things like that. And then I had looked at something where they talked about it in Hinduism and Buddhism and Western philosophy and ancient philosophy and Islam and all of that. And it's just, I think it's interesting how it's been acknowledged, and it's in different cultures throughout the ages.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking about. And then I was back to, and so all that said, in our relationships, how, let's do this instead. In our relationships, how can we use our intuition to be more supportive, to be better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good question. So I want to come to Kent in a minute, but I wanted to touch on Sherry's comment that when we do not choose, as her correction says, it says to me that we are not ready to accept our good. And I think that's probably accurate. We're not in a place to take that path really. If we choose not to go there, we're not in a place to go there yet. We're not ready for that for some reason. Even though the still small voice or whatever you want to call the intuition may have said to us, turn left. you know, we go, no, I'm not going left. I'm going right. Um, but that's because it's something about going the other direction is we're not ready for it. And
Well,
so part of what the direction we do go allows us to grow and process and to understand something new. And next time we hear the same kind of intuitive thought, we hear it differently. And so perhaps we choose differently.
yeah, but before we go to Kent, I just want to say, I mean, but isn't that true? Isn't that true? I mean, so intuition shows up in many ways, right? And then I don't know. I mean, I don't know the parameters that each person has on it, but like even things like not just the small voice in our head, but like what about the times when we, you know, are trying to figure out, whether or not we should stay with somebody, and then all of a sudden we get the signs, the song comes on that is the breakup song, or the you look up and there's a billboard that says, you deserve more in your life, or I mean, so those are part of the messages of intuition. I mean, are those part of the messages of intuition? Is that what guides you to those? I mean, like, or does intuition speaks in many ways, I think, and so all of that, I don't know. That's just what was coming up for me when you were talking. I just needed to get it out.
So
Thank you.
Sherry says, I believe it could be. So let's go back to Kent.
Yes.
Uh, Even the Bible calls out when folks are responding to altered states.
No, that's Kevin.
Oh, that's
But,
Kevin. I'm
but
sorry.
that's okay. Read it.
Okay, I thought it was the other one that came up. Much of Yeshua's teachings were diverging from the thinking of the world around them. Yes. Okay. So, in other words, what I'm hearing you say is that Scripture points out in the Bible it elevates times when people clearly are not acting simply from the knowledge of the day, etc. They're calling on something different that's coming into what they're saying, into what they're doing. All right, that was really helpful. That really cleared it up. So let's talk about Kent.
Go ahead.
I see intuition as accessing knowing outside the limitations of our mind, connection to our greater self-consciousness without the filters of habit and belief. Okay, so yeah, it comes through without the filters. That's possible. Yeah, it doesn't get stuck on the filters. Relationships, especially healthy primary relationships, are deeply intuitive.
Kevin, are you giving us a shout out for our relationship? Just kidding. But I think that's true. I think intuition is a key to our success, and we've even talked about it on the level that, like, Gil and I, when we fight or when something goes wrong, it sometimes it feels like so crazy bad, because so much of the time we're so in sync with our intuition and our knowingness of each other, and our ability to know, or to pre I don't know, pre something, preclude, I don't know what the word is, but to know, so that when we hit that bump in the road, and somebody goes, it's like all of a sudden it feels huge. And it's not that huge. It's just that we've been communicating a lot of the time on a different level, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
So I think that's right. I think in good relationships, it has to be, because it's like it's still the flow of energy. It's just not verbal, and so it's a back and forth of energy that connects you to somebody. Oh,
So
Kevin, that was good. Apparently, I felt passionate about that.
there's a there's a communication thing that's going on there. I mean, that whether or not it's out loud, it's still a communication thing that's happening.
Yes.
So I just wanted to thank Wayne for all of his insights, guidance on demand for our for God. I like that. Um, and he had another one up here that was kind of fun.
He
Uh,
he had act or
Ty all God, tis all God. That was tag.
tag. Yeah. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne from Calgary. Nice that you're here with us. Yeah. So I'm going to put up another quote that I liked. It says, when you reach the end of what you should know, you will be at the beginning of what you should sense.
Mm.
And that's Cahill Gibran. And I guess, not trying to be like whatever, but that's kind of how I feel, because I feel back to what I said before. I feel like I don't know anything anymore. I mean, I feel like I've really just let go of what I think I know. Even when I'm sure I know it. I'm like, okay, all right, let's try it this way. Cuz I just I don't know. Where did you go? What are you looking for?
Nothing. I'm just thinking about what you said um, about not knowing. And I think it's interesting because at some level, intuition is a way to know without knowing. It offers us some kind of sense that we have an answer, we have an understanding without needing to have all the facts to back it up, without having to have done all the research, without whatever that is, right?
Right? And that goes to Albert Einstein. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, truly, we can only know one thing. Right?
And that is?
That God is.
Yeah.
I mean, all roads lead back to that.
All road leads back to.
Go ahead. Which is why when I first put that quote, I was like, well, how can you not know you're right? I mean, how if you feel it, how can you not know it's right? That was my question for Albert.
Mm.
Right? Sometimes I feel that I am right. I do not know that I am.
Well, what struck me about that was having just seen the movie Oppenheimer and all the physicists gathering together and doing equations and talking about things. What struck me was that yes, that many of those people in Einstein's circle of people felt that something was the truth, something was what was going on, but they couldn't show it empirically. So therefore they couldn't know it for sure, but they already knew it. They were just trying to figure out how to get there. And I think that's what Einstein's talking about, that thing of, I feel it, and I can't tell you that I know it, but I can tell you I know it. right?
Yeah,
So it is it is the end of our time pretty much, right?
it is.
Yeah. Woo, that's
That,
fast.
that was fast. That was a lot. That was a lot. Yeah. So, any parting words of wisdom?
Well, my thought is just that our intuition can serve us in relationships, definitely, in terms of how we function with other people, what we sense about what's going on in their lives, how we relate and have compassion, all that stuff. If we're listening to our intuition, we are much more likely to be on target on those things. Do all roads lead back to God mean all roads lead to God? Does all roads lead back to God mean all roads lead to God? Uh, Kinda, yeah.
I would say, yeah. I would say that's the whole premise of our show, Rockin the Love.
I
All
mean,
roads lead to love.
if
All
it's
roads lead to love.
yeah, if we're looking at the big picture, there is no back. You
I
can't
think
go
I
back
said
to
big.
God. You can only go to God. Omnipresent nurturing energy. One. Oh, I like that one too, Wayne. Thank you.
Nice, Wayne.
Got all the good ones today.
Wayne, we're going to have to hire you for our advertising slogan campaigns. Those are great acronyms. Yeah, so I think that's right, Sherry, and I said back, and you're right.
Yeah. So I think for today we can say let your intuition guide you, and then know that whatever you do, whatever the road is you choose, it is your path to spirit.
Yep, yep. Let it go and live by intuition and inspiration.
And
And
let your whole life be revelation. Woo!
yeah, so thank you for joining us, and we hope that this week you'll take the time to reveal lots and lots of love on the planet, because we know that that is the light and love that you are. Thank you for the Kevin for the shout out. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week right here on the Thought Media Network. Rock the love, y'all.
Keep on rocking.